Now, today we also take a look at President Geingob, the administrator, what role he played as far as elections are concerned, but also what his take was on labour matters in the country. And joining us for that purpose, Commissioner at the Electoral Commission of Namibia, Mr. Hage, as well as the National Union of Namibian Workers, Secretary General, Mr. Job Munyaro. Perhaps before we get into the particulars of the conversation, Mr. Munyaro, do you have a tribute message or a message of condolences?
We do. I can forward it to you.
That you'd like to share at this juncture?
I will share it after.
Very well. Mr. Shianuna, something that you'd like to say for the family and for the Namibian nation?
Well, ECN issued tribute to the media, I think a few days ago. It was published in all the major newspapers. And, of course, word of condolences to the wife and the children. And perhaps, as a footnote, in my personal capacity, I have published a tribute. It was published today in both New Era and the Namibian newspaper.
For those who may not have had the opportunity to read it, of course, you've had a very long journey as well with the late Dr. Geingob. Would you like to share that with us in very broad strokes?
Yeah. Yesterday, I'm sure those who were watching on TV realized that there was a slot for former UNIM students on the program. And our tribute was read by Dr. Vaino Shivute. I was part of that group. I was the late President Hage Geingob was my director of UNIM in the 80s. We was the United Nations Institute that was created by the UN to prepare Namibians to run the administration of the country. Yeah, and secondly, I also served under him when he was Prime Minister from 1990, during his 2 terms as Prime Minister. And the title of my tribute that was published today in both the Namibian newspaper and New Era is Hage Geingob was larger than life.
Mm.
And he was a hands-on administrator, and perhaps many people have been describing his administrative skills, but maybe what they have forgotten to remember is that actually, during his stint at the United Nations, he was not only representing SWAPO and studying, but he actually worked as a junior officer at the UN.
I'm sure more of those particulars will unfold during our conversation this afternoon. Mr. Munyaro, it's a well-documented fact that in his May Day speech last year, the President reiterated his call for a conducive working environments for our workers. What do you make of his plea for workers in Namibia, number one, number two, but is it your observation that employers are heeding the call?
Thank you very much, Comrade. I think it's for us as a federation. It's a tough moment for us to use the word late president.
Mm.
You know, he was a first worker of these Namibian people. That's why we have always been invited him at all our May Days as a first worker. Secondly, let me also say condolences to the Namibian people, more especially Namibian workers. Let me equally also say condolences to the First Lady, Comrade Monica Geingob. She was always there for him, making sure he is happy and produce healthy work to the Namibian people with peace that comes from home. We will not forget about her.
Mm.
Comrade Geingob was at the heart of the Namibian workers. Even if we are too quiet, if we are quiet for a certain period, he would call me and say, "Comrade, you are quiet and I'm already started sleeping on duty. I don't see you on TV.
Mm.
I don't see you, hear you over radios. Don't read about you on newspapers." So it tells you that he had his own way of monitoring the peace within the labor fraternity. It's also an issue that tells you that he had an open door for us as workers to share our grievances in order to keep the labor unrest managed. So we must also know that when he was sworn in, we must respect that he was one of the brave workers, one of the brave leaders. When he was sworn in, all of us know the country's economy was not in a very good state. He showed bravery, he showed leadership, that even though the country is under these circumstances, I'm going to take over the leadership and I'm going to make sure Namibia prosper. That's one of the great things that he make us proud of. Mm. It's not for everybody who would take that. He did not shake around. He was not shaking when he took over. He knew he was, as a senior administrator, who would make it.
He stood firm. He stood his ground.
He stood his ground, he stood firm. And when he came in the office, he said, in order for us to reach somewhere, we must build together a Namibian house out of our 11 bricks that we have. It means our 11 tribes that we have. For them not to be seen on the wall, that plaster the house.
Mr. Shianuna, before we get into the particulars of Dr. Hage Geingob as a seasoned administrator, perhaps just your reflections on what is planned for him in terms of the official memorial service and the state funeral, given the man of that stature.
Yeah, I think he deserves that honor. I read in a tribute that was written in a Namibian newspaper on the Monday shortly after his death. And in that tribute reads that no one has impacted the political landscape of Namibia, second only to founding President Sam Nujoma, the way Hage did. And I think I couldn't agree more with that. And I think he deserves that. And the other day when the UN General Assembly observed a moment of silence, I was telling my wife that, wow, I have never seen the UN General Assembly doing that for any other leader. So he really has left imprints, not only in Namibia, but globally. So he really deserves that type of honor and funeral.
Ms. Minyoro, what is your take on the send-off that is envisaged for the late Dr. Hage Geingob?
You see, President Geingob was an extraordinary leader. On the day that the death was announced, first thing you could see, the whole 14 regions in this country was in trauma. Equally, you could see how he was valued by political parties within our country, all inclusive opposition and the ruling party. It tells you he was a person of special meaning to the Namibian people. So if the oppositions and the ruling parties give that tribute to him, you go out of this country, all opposition outside countries and governments and ruling parties outside government in the world has described him as a unifier. What else better than could have been if we all as Namibians can take hands and guarantee him with the unity he always preach, that he deserves that honor.
Thank you. I want to take you back to my initial question to you. We were reminded of his reiterated call during the May Day commemoration last year, namely that working environments should be conducive and that workers should receive just and fair remuneration. Is what you are witnessing in our country at the moment reflective of a conducive working environment, but also just and fair remuneration for Namibian workers?
As I said earlier, you see, a call of a president is normally analyzed by the workers and the employers. We just not listen to what he said, but we normally workshop it in order for it to be realized, to avoid conflicts and to avoid labor unrest in the country. So in most cases, when the president called, he knew why he's sending out that message.
Certainly. So my question remains, are you witnessing working environments across this country that are generally conducive, and are you witnessing that workers are being remunerated justly and fairly for their services?
They will never find fairness in terms of and justice in terms of salaries. It depends from business fluctuation. It depends from business ownership. In some companies, there are fair and just remuneration in terms of your question. In some areas, you find still the injustices to workers.
What are you doing to make the working environments more conducive as a union leader?
We have so many things. We had workshops, we have strategic plans together with employers' federations. So we came at a stage where the government was approached through the Ministry of Labour to come up with the minimum wage in order for us to make sure the just compensation is realized.
Thank you. Mr. Shianuna, Dr. Geingob was clear in his vision that an electoral body should have agency, should function autonomously and relatively independently. Talk to us about the extent to which that culminated in the establishment of the Electoral Commission of Namibia.
Thank you. I think that is a very good question. The viewers may recall that initially the Electoral Commission was a directorate in the office of the Prime Minister. And out of his own volition and through his initiative, he realized that that would not augur well for our democracy. And he proposed through cabinet and through wide consultative processes with all the stakeholders that the Electoral Commission needed to be independent. So in the year 2000, the Electoral Commission was divorced, as it were, from the office of the Prime Minister to become an independent body. And of course, this was now reaffirmed in amendments to the Constitution that culminated in Article number 94B that guarantees the independence of Electoral Commission as the only body that is mandated to run free and fair elections. And of course, also through Act number 5 of 2014 that gives a full mandate to ECN to operate as an independent agency. And I must say that the Prime Minister then played a key role in ensuring the independence of ECN. And so far, sorry to interrupt, so far we have never received any instructions or any intimidation from him how we should run our affairs. We have been running our affairs completely independent from government.
That brings me to my next question. Notwithstanding the fact that the supreme law of the land provides for such a body to function independently, despite the existence of the statute to stipulate the same, how does this independence, how does the impartiality of this body work practically?
Yeah, I can assure you that we are completely independent. But of course, there are some challenges. When it comes to the management of our human resources, we would want to be independent, but at the moment, the recruitment, promotion, and so on of our staff members is subjected to the Public Service Act, and we have to go through all the processes through the Public Service Commission to recruit our staff members. So we see that as a big challenge when it comes to the independence of the Commission. We are working towards that. You might be aware that we have proposed a few amendments that are currently being considered by Cabinet, and hopefully this will be served before Parliament during the current financial year. And we hope and believe that those amendments will go a long way to enhance our independence and autonomy. But I think by and large, we operate independently.
We'll get into more details of that in a bit. Mr. Munyoro, the President during his May Day speech also said that government has a very serious responsibility to see to it that the work environment, apart from it having to be conducive, and the compensation needing to be just and fair, the working environment must also be safe, without any threats to the lives of workers, with it being healthy. What is your take on where we are at in terms of that goal?
You see, one can give you a guarantee that more than 70% the health and safety situation of this country it's really been realized up to a stage of 70%.
How were you able to establish that number one, and what do you make of the remaining 30%?
They are no longer death that is occurring at the workplaces. There are no longer injuries at workplaces. I think you are a newsman, you should have followed that.
Injuries are from time to time, in fact, reported, and deaths as well at the workplace.
Yeah, but you see, it has minimized. It will always be there, but it has minimized drastically.
Is a workplace only deemed to be safe if I don't die or if I don't get seriously injured?
It depends also. There's a lot of factors that there's also stress at work.
Talk to us about stress at work and the impact on one's mental health.
That costs that mental health. You find people being employed for a reason that is not good.
What do you mean, sir?
You see, sometimes one says, I will employ you on condition you become my boyfriend or my girlfriend. Sometimes he says, I will employ you as long as you are with this company. You give me a 2,000 every month.
Sure.
Sometimes they give you some directives to say, this is the condition that I want to do. More especially that higher position, like lecturers, you bring in a foreigner brought by another foreigner. They will tell you, instead of him getting 45 or 50,000 per month, they tell you that 10,000 will come to me.
Wow.
Because I brought you in, and that 10,000 is actually the money that you're supposed to be left with.
What are you doing about that, sir?
At a certain stage, we have brought that to a standstill because we have membership on the ground. And sometimes when we sit around tables, we share. They share to their leadership, they share to their friends. And sometimes we also share at environments where what is outside the working places. And we hear that, we follow that up, and we relieve them from that happening.
It must concern you as a union leader.
Seriously.
Yeah. Mr. Shianuna, you raised a critically important point, that part of what threatens the independence of the Electoral Commission of Namibia is that you still have to operate through the Public Service Commission to make sure that you appoint team members of the ECN. How big of a threat is that to the independence? But at the same time, you said you have proposed changes to legislation to try and recover independence.
Yeah, I think that's very important because, you in some countries in Africa and elsewhere, the electoral management bodies have autonomy as far as the recruitment of their staff is concerned. And in some cases, I believe in majority of cases, their pay levels or pay structures are even far better compared to those in the public service. So in other words, we would want to, in a position, be able to recruit and to retain talent. Because if you want to run an independent and efficient electoral machinery, you need to have the best of the cream in terms of manpower. Yeah.
Do we have sufficient manpower in terms of the cream of the crop available in Namibia? And if not, what are we doing to capacitate our Namibian people with the requisite skills?
Yeah, I think that question is a bit outside my mandate, but yeah.
But you witness what it is that you're attracting.
Yeah,
you witness what it is that you're working with.
Yeah. Maybe not in all the fields. Perhaps there are some technical skills like IT, accountants, and so on, where we still face challenges. Yeah, and I think if you take institutions like University of Namibia, they have lecturing staff, from different parts of Africa and so on. Yeah, maybe I fully agree with you that perhaps we are not yet there. And also take into account that, relatively speaking, we are still a new democracy. Yeah, and I think we have
a 34-year-old democracy. 34-year-old democracy.
Yeah, but I think in terms of manpower development, I'm afraid we are not yet there.
Very well. Mr. Munyaro, President Geingob also valued consultation. He also valued dialogue. You shared with us earlier in your introductory overview how if he had not seen you on television for a while, if he hadn't read about your sentiments in the newspaper, he would reach out to you, asking you whether you're resting on your laurels and sleeping on the job. Talk to us about the dialogue, the consultation that he fostered amongst his office and that of the NUNW, please.
You see, Comrade, one would like to say thank you on behalf of Namibian workers. It's not always that you find to have a leader that takes a decision to say, this is not going to happen in an independent democratic country. Sometimes where there is a big deadlock, let me give you an example of Shoprite case. He said, Comrade Munyaro, I'm not going to move out of the country and leave Shoprite burning. He said, as long as that case is not solved, I will be here with you. I don't want to hear this case being solved in my absence.
Just very briefly, Ms. Munyaro, for those tuned in at the moment who may not be familiar with the Shoprite matter, could you just share very briefly the fundamentals that were at stake?
You see, I just give you examples of that for them to understand why I'm saying that.
For sure, but there may be someone tuned in right now who's wondering what Shoprite matter is the good Mr. Munyaro talking about. Just very briefly to tell them what that was about.
No, you see, there was an issue of Shoprite matter where you find all Shoprite workers paid an amount of 1,300 and something per month, including transport and everything.
And that concerned the president?
That concerned all of us. And when we explained to the president, he said, you have a case. It's true. Equally, when we had a case with the public servants and teachers, we said we have been very realistic. We have been grand because we have also taken in consideration our economy, the schools and the services that government must render to our people, including ourselves. And then we understood their call, and we said, this year, things are up.
And President Geingob was also hands-on involved in that matter as far as the teachers are concerned.
Definitely. He actually climbed off the plane and said, I'm not going to go.
And the announcement of the increment was made at State House that the strike has been called off.
The strike will not be there. I'm calling the federations and its leadership together to sign a deal. The zero is not a deal. That's what he said. That's bravery. After the Minister of Finance says there is no money, he said no. That's not a deal.
Money will be found.
We will find the money, and that's not a zero deal. Is not a deal.
Very well. Thank you.
So that's great respect from him. There's several times that he's involved.
Mr. Sheanuna, I don't want to belabor the point of independence, but I think it's such a critically important matter, particularly because we're heading to the polls as a country later this year. The Constitution makes mention of it and prescribes how we are to conduct ourselves. So does the Electoral Act. But could you solidify what practical measures or mechanisms are in place to prevent any interference in those processes?
Yeah, I don't think we have so far really experienced any interference.
Just one moment. I think one needs to differentiate between actual interference or attempted interference. We're talking now specifically about mechanisms that are in place, practical ones, to prevent and or deter such interference or such attempted interference.
Yeah, I think the mechanisms that are in place are those that are stipulated in the in Article 94B of the Constitution, as well as the Electoral Act number 5 of 2014, that grantees and gives the mandate to the ECN as the sole agency that must run, conduct, and supervise elections.
And at the same time criminalizing such interference, yes or no?
Yeah, yes, of course, yeah. So I think of course, when you are dealing with stakeholders, especially political parties, it's very difficult to convince them that ECN is independent.
Why is that the case?
Yeah, because I think because of political stakes, you will find that especially from opposition parties, there is this belief that maybe ECN is in the pocket of the ruling party, which is not the case. Let me give you an example. The Act stipulates that when it comes to some dates on the electoral calendar, and we have a draft electoral calendar, which we shared with the new president when he was still just a few days before the tragic event. We shared with him when he was acting, because in terms of the Act, some of the calendars some of the days on the electoral calendar must be approved by the president. So we went to consult him in that capacity as head of state, But now already there was some information circulating on the social media that we have consulted a political party, but we didn't consult a political party. We consulted the acting president in his capacity as acting president of the Republic.
Thank you, sir.
Not as a leader of the ruling party.
Thank you very much. Any final thoughts before we let you go this afternoon?
Well, I would say that President Hage Geingob was one of a kind. And I would perhaps my parting thoughts would be, I want to quote from the words of the revolutionary leader of Guinea-Bissau, Amilcar Cabral, who once, referring to himself, and I quote, he said, "I am a simple African trying to do my duty for my country in the context of our times," end of quote. And I think that's how we late President Hage Geingob may want us to remember him, that he was just a simple African trying to do his duty for his country in the context of his times. Thank you.
What will you miss most about him?
I will miss his high governance standards. I will miss his mantra of inclusivity, because he was to his fingertips a nationalist who didn't have a bone of tribalism in him, and I appreciate him for that.
Thank you for sharing that, sir. Mr. Munyaro, any final thoughts from you this afternoon, please?
Yes, you see, Comrade Hage was to the workers was a transformational leader. He was a mind changer. When you come around the table to talk, he was a very good, one of the good mind changers. He reminds us about the word he liked most on his speeches is inclusivity. he spoke highly about unity. So I think that's a guarantee and the respect and honor that we must give to him. What he has been calling for, it was for the best of Namibian people. And that should be the case. The union is always a slogan that says, united we stand, divided we fall. That's our guarantee. Thank you.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts, insights on the life and legacy of the late Dr. Geingob.
Thank you.